Right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lena Watts, and I'd like to welcome you to the KHAM webinar on Making the Connection, First Patient Contact. This presentation aims to look at oneself to identify personal values and ethics and how they relate to being the best professional. Also, we'll explore the importance of self-care and how to enhance communication style for better outcomes for all involved. Today, we have a very special speaker by the name of Araceli May. She has worked as an educator and mental health professional for over 24 years. Currently, she serves as a school district administrator for the second largest school district in the nation. Ms. May supports mental health professionals and assisting students with special needs and leads several district-wide student and family programs. In addition, she maintains a private mental health practice in Glendale, California, where she helps transform the lives of adults and families through coaching, counseling, and psychotherapy. For over 15 years, Ms. May has been honored to serve as a provider for the Family Advocacy Outreach Network, a branch of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, where she offers support to individuals and families in crisis. In addition, Ms. May is exceptionally proud to serve as an adjunct professor at the California State University, Los Angeles, in the Child and Family Studies Department. Ms. May holds a Bachelor of Arts in Social Work and a Master of Arts in Social Work and Education. She is licensed as a clinical social worker through the Board of Behavior Sciences. So without further ado, I'd like to present to you Araceli May. And I just wanted to also mention, if everyone could hold their questions till the very end, as well as hold off putting anything in the chat until the very end so we can listen to the entire presentation before we present our questions to her. Thank you so much for your participation.
Awesome. All right. How's my volume?
Sounds good.
Okay, great. Well, welcome everyone. Good afternoon. I'm really excited to be here. At this point, I'm going to invite you to join us in this space, join us with this in this time. I know that a lot of you have a lot of work to do, and sometimes we're not maybe all here together because we have other tasks, but I am inviting you. At this point, I'm also going to invite you to turn on your cameras. If any of you feel comfortable turning on your cameras, that'd be great. It allows me to know if the information's making sense, if it's sticking. Look at that, Miss Lena. Thank you. Ms. Watts has got it for me. All right, so as I invite you into the space, I'm also going to invite you, we're going to do a grounding activity. And so, oh, look at you all. You guys are awesome. Thank you for that. And so the first thing we'll do is get yourself comfortable. We're going to be here for a bit, right? So I always say, this is what I tell my students too. We're going to be here for a little bit. Might as well get comfortable. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take 3 deep breaths, breathing in and breathing out. And we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to go ahead and breathe in with love, breathing in, breathe in love, and breathe out peace. Breathe in joy. Breathe out calm. Breathe in excitement and breathe out enthusiasm. Awesome. Okay, so as we do that, I got to wake up my screen here so they fall asleep a little bit. It's been my experience. Okay, so I like to start with this slide here. And this is a little bit of a reminder. When I show up, I am wholeheartedly available. I always tell my students, I tell my families, I bring everything. I give everything. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share everything. I know everything. I'm available to share that with you. And you feel free to pick what you want. And so as I show you this box of candies, you get to feel free. I mean, maybe you don't like the dark chocolate because I'm a kind of milk chocolate kind of gal. All that nutty stuff, I don't know. I just want to see some butter crunch somewhere. So again, it's like, I'm going to bring a wealth of information, but because the reality is that I'm honoring, the reality is you are a complex individual. You will have experience under your belt. You have lived your lives. I'm not talking to people that aren't experienced here. So the reality is I'm really aware that you're a complex individual and I want to honor your time, honor you as a professional, as a person, and knowing that there's a lot here before. And so as I'm bringing information, I also wanted to share that some of it may be familiar to you. You may have heard this before. I invite you to come in with fresh eyes. I always, when I go to presentations or PDs, I think of, I'm going to go in as a refresher. I may know the topic. It may be a topic I train on, but I go in with fresh eyes, fresh ears, because I know it'll serve as a refresher. I'll hear it from a different angle. So it has always paid off. And that's where I've embraced the lifelong learning mentality. That is who I am. I'm a lifelong learner. I learn from you. I learn from my patients. I learn from people that walk into my life. So I'm always open to that. So I am inviting you to do that. All right, so we'll go ahead and move on. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so as we start here, I wanted to have this slide here available for you. So these people here, we're going to pretend for the sake of this activity, I know them. They're healthy, and strong. Maybe this may ring a bell to some people. And so I know that they are healthy and their well-being is sustained here. So the question for you, put it in the chat. In your opinion, what do they need to maintain to continue their well-being? What is needed? So go ahead and put it in the chat. Anything that works for you. What do you need to do to maintain your well-being? What do they need to do to maintain it? So it doesn't just show up. It doesn't just come easy. Okay, and I won't read, you can see those, that's right. Look at that, look at that. Very nice. And just, you'll see it in the chat. Thank you for that. And I'm gonna add some of my own components that I really embrace and I share and teach and model. So sleep, I'm modeling, I'm sleep deprived, just so you know, in case you were wondering, I'm a little sleep deprived. But really we're looking at securing those 8 to 9 hours. And how do we do that? It's important. It's like, how do we prioritize our sleep? And the importance of sleep is I think not communicated well. Sleep, listen to this part. Sleep is the only time your body heals itself. It's hard to digest. Sleep is the only time it actually repairs and heals. That's the only time it's going to do it. Not when you're awake, not when you're at work, not when you're reading a book. And so the importance of that. Also looking at nutrition and hydration. I don't know if you knew, but just drinking water, and I'm going to pick it up just for the moment of modeling, it actually will improve your mood. And so these are some of the things that we want to consider. What kind of nutrition are we putting in our bodies? Is it whole foods or is it a quick, my favorite, I don't know, Taco Bell, So looking at that. How about connections? And the connections are really important. Having strong relationships with friends and family are really key to people reaching their potential. Spirituality, there's research. The Search Institute has conducted research on spirituality. Who knew? Meditation, religiosity, connecting with a higher power. It's a critical domain of positive development across traditions and cultures. How about a safe haven? And safe haven, I put it up there because I know what a safe haven is, and you know what a safe haven looks to you. And so I challenge you to create your space, your apartment, your home, make it a safe haven. I always feel like when we go out into the city, we go into work, it's rough out there. So when I go home, I want it to be a safe haven, the importance of that. And so you know what that means for yourself. We talked about movement. And commit to moving your body each day. I got rid of the exercise part. If I say exercise, nobody is ever going to do it. So just move your body. And let's look at a little bit of the research. The Mayo Clinic found 13 studies that those who sat more than 8 hours a day with no physical activity had a risk of dying like that posed by obesity or smoking cigarettes. So I don't know if you've even heard, like, the party line is that sitting 8 hours is equivalent to smoking. Well, that's where that comes from. Again, it's like moving our bodies is important. And curiosity and creativity. We're going to talk a little bit about Dr. Daniel Siegel later in the research and the importance of implementing that in your life, keeping it fun, keeping it spontaneity in your life. And how do you do that? Teenagers seem to do it naturally. That's why they always get into trouble, right? They get into something. So the adults really are encouraged to do that as well. And my last one that I really believe is important is financial savvy. It's tough economics. We've had the pandemic. It's like, how are we balancing our finances with this new economy? Because that's a huge stressor as well, and getting a hold of that. So looking at those. All right, so we're going to move on. And I just wanted to mention that this slide here, you can read it, the quote. But this slide is here for me to share with you that as I proceed, as I engage in the city, I always think of friends in the city. So every interaction I have with patients, whether it's with colleagues, is considering them as friends. And I might have just met them. My interaction with them will be nice to meet you, even if it's on the phone. It will be nice to meet you. And considering them, treating them as a friend changes the tone of my voice and my engagement with them. You know, we say that love is infinite. If love is infinite, then we're not going to run out of it. You know, we can continue giving it out. And so my question to you is, what are you going to do with your love? What do you do with your love? Right? Do you hide it, put it away? Or are you able, if it's infinite, are you able to give it out? And I think, you know, one of the things that happened during the pandemic, I was very in tune and aware, is when I would go out and we were under lockdown, I was really aware that sometimes I just had to acknowledge that maybe the person that I bumped into at the grocery store, maybe I was their only interaction the entire day, right? Or that entire week. And so I think it really brought it home of how those connections are really important and how we can give back. The other thing I wanted to do with this slide is share a little bit. This is ECHO. This is an organization, nonprofit as well. And, you know, it's a resource for you. So everything, for the most part, all the research that I'm going to be bringing up or names of professionals, it's going to be under resources or references. When we're done, you'll be able to see that. Okay. So as we talk about well-being, Dr. Daniel Siegel, he's a clinical professor of psychiatry, UCLA best-selling author, and renowned neuropsychiatrist. And so this image here is really looking at the 7 daily essential mental activities to optimize brain matter and create well-being. And so if you think about it, we touched on it, right? When you added your information on the chat, you can see that you also touched on some of the components. And so he's got, I'm only going to mention a couple of them. So let's see, playtime, for example, being curious. Spontaneity is when we allow ourselves to be spontaneous or creative, playful, enjoying novel experiences. We help make new connections in the brain. And time in, for example, what is time in? So time in is really looking at mindfulness, meditation could be an example. And when we quietly reflect internally, focusing in on sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts, we help to better integrate the brain. And I think we talked about the sleep, we talked about, let's see, focus time. And that's, focus time is a good one as well, is learning something new. When we closely focus on tasks in a goal-oriented way, to take on challenges that make deep connections in the brain. So these are all the components that he's bringing up that are going to be helpful, and they're like pillars to that well-being as we move forward. And I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Daniel Siegel's work. He's huge on acronyms, but this is an acronym that I like. It's simple, light, and polite. I call it, it's 3G, 2P. So if you're looking at these activities, they will help you live a life with purpose and fulfillment. And so it's easy to remember. If you think of gratitude, what are we grateful for genuinely, right? Generosity and giving back to the people and to the planet. And that's Dr. Daniel Siegel. I wanted to kind of really cover well-being for you from different angles, from my perspective as a professional, but also you got to hear from your colleagues here in the chat. And then also let's look at the CDC. So well-being is a positive outcome that is meaningful for people and for society, because it tells us that people perceive that their lives are going well. So for example, good living conditions are the foundation of well-being, quality of the relationships, positive emotions, resiliency, and resiliency is that ability to bounce back. How quickly can you bounce back? And realization of our potential. And at the end of the day, it's really our overall satisfaction with life is our well-being. So there you have it, the understanding of what we're looking at when it's your well-being. And the reason why I say you, it starts with you, is that, you know, it's kind of cheesy, that whole what do we say? The oxygen mask when you're on a plane, right? Put on that oxygen mask before you can help anybody else. And that's the reality, is that you need to be solid. You need to be feeling that you've got this. Otherwise, it's really difficult to share it with your patients, with the people you're interacting on a daily basis. So let's look at this slide. So look at this. We got that famous half full, half empty glass of water. And the research from the National Institute on Aging has some research that optimism is linked to longevity and well-being. And so here, when scientists analyzed the data, they found that most optimistic women lived on average 5.4% longer, which approximated to 4.4 years than the least optimistic woman. And the most optimistic women were also more likely to achieve exceptional longevity. So the reality is, here's the challenge. I'm challenging you today to make a decision, because sometimes it's as simple as that. You got to make a decision. Do you want to look at it from the half full perspective or half empty? Because if you think about it, at the end of the day, same amount of water. It's just how you're going to look at it. It's the same amount of water. We know that for a fact. And the reason, let me see if I can bring this to life, is, do you remember the first car you ever got? The first car you bought? It might have been used, it might have been rickety. You remember the color? And as you had that car, all of a sudden you're driving it, and all of a sudden you didn't realize how many red cars were out there. Whoa, a lot of red cars, right? Or how about in the family when somebody gets pregnant? Whoa, everybody's pregnant. How did everybody get pregnant? I'm pregnant, right? And so the point is that I'm making is to think, if you've lived it already, you know what that's like. What I'm saying is, if you live your life from the perspective, if it's half full, then all of a sudden, you will be able to look for joy and positives in your life. They were already there. And all of a sudden you'll see them more often. And before you know it, you'll feel like, wow, there's a lot of good stuff happening around me. And so that's where the decision comes in. Make that choice. Join me. All right, so moving on. So when we're looking at this piece here, how to better engage and gain understanding during the initial interaction, the reality is, you know how to do that. You're in this field, you've been doing it, right? And so I'm just going to share some of the tidbits and some of the information that I have for you. For me, it's been slowing down. The thing is, we have a lot. Emails are coming in. We've got projects. And one of the tools that I've learned is to breathe, and it allows me to refresh. Between patients, taking a deep breath is almost like a reset. I paid big money one time for $250 for a test taking exam. And one of the big things he mentioned was, envision that as the patient is walking away, then you're done with that. You can close the door on that information, on that piece. And as a new patient is coming in, that door is closed. That's where you take your deep breath, you refresh, restart the system, and the new patient comes in. And that allows you to be in tune with the next person quickly, efficiently, in a healthy manner. So I'm inviting you to do that. Look, you didn't have to pay the $250 for that. So that's one way of doing it. The other one is, I always call it, I joke around, but I say, handle your business. Handle your business. Look, I made sure I ate before. I'm not hungry. I'm presenting. Nobody has time to eat, but I made sure I put nourishment in my body. I have water and I had it beforehand. I wasn't going to be drinking during, but I'm going to take a sip model. The reason I say handle your business is because if it is that you need tea, you need a snack, you need some coffee, you may need your favorite pen, because the favorite pen brings you joy, the notepad. That is part of your getting ready for improving that interaction. And so as you're going to move forward with meeting your patients and engaging, I invite you to come in with those open eyes, open ears, and open heart. Okay, look at this. So let's talk real quick. We won't spend too much time here, but think about your favorite place to be a customer real quick. Put it in the chat. And here's the question. How did they make you feel? What did they do to make you feel comfortable and welcomed? I'll give you an example. Chick-fil-A, you know what? Chick-fil-A is importante because I'll tell you their philosophy in their business. It's a service. It's a service mentality. If you look at the business model for Chick-fil-A, who knew that I know these things? It's definitely a service model. And mine was about 15 years ago, used to be Trader Joe's. I'd walk into Trader Joe's and the gentleman at the cash register was happy to see me. He'd ask me what was going on this weekend. And of course, I'm going to tell him how far I'm running. And he seemed so interested. And I thought he actually really wanted to know. And so I definitely show up to his line every week to go get groceries. I try to hide my children when I'd get in line. But definitely Trader Joe's had it happening 15 years ago. They've changed how their customer service is these days. I mean, these days you walk in somewhere and nobody even gives you eye contact, right? Look at that, 4th season, Miss Watts. I'm gonna try that. Say that again. But anyway, thank you for that. So think about that. And as we'll move forward with this one, thank you for sharing. So let's look at the benefits of building rapport. And rapport is really a friendly, harmonious relationship characterized by agreement, mutual understanding, or empathy that makes communication possible or easy. And so look at that. When we build rapport, it builds trust, loyalty. People are a little friendlier. They're like, it's okay if you made a mistake, right? Because we build that rapport. And I like that your patients will want you to be successful. And so it really is going to be a tool to, jump on. And I want to say this, as we're here together, think of the things you can use with your family and your friends, because this is in your relationships, your intimate relationships. A lot of the techniques we're learning here is going to help you with all your communication everywhere. So look at the techniques at the bottom. The focusing on one patient at a time. How many times have you been in line and you get ignored and you're the next one up, or you're waiting to come in, so you just want a quick question, but you have to think of your own style and how do you handle that. And I know for me, the way I interact, I interact with people in many modalities, in a group settings, sometimes group, also face-to-face with like no privacy in a huge room. And, I use humor to bring them in. But what I do is I will look up at the next person and just give them a nod, let them know that they're a person and I know you're there. I'll get to you. I don't have to say anything, but I just give you a nod. Or I'll even say, I'll be with you in a minute. I also do host Zooms. I do a Zoom drop-in session every week for like 3 hours. And people are popping in. It's a drop-in session. So I'll say, Mr. Jones, I'll be with you in a minute. Just to be acknowledged, and they just say, they nod and they wait quietly. But at least, I think of it culturally, in my home culturally, the minute you walk in, I have to drop everything and go say hello and greet you as a person, as a mode of respect. My children understand that as well. We drop everything. You have a person that has walked in, I don't care who it is, you drop everything and even if it's just eye contact, right? But we definitely need to drop everything and greet. And so I think of it culturally, it's as well, how are we doing our techniques? How are we building capacity with our own communication style here? And again, like I said, one of the other things that helps me is slowing down and moving objects that distract me. I've even done this where I'll turn off my monitors when somebody walks in, or I'm not kidding. Sometimes I get goofy, but I have to do it because I have to focus, and I'll just like cover one ear because I'm having a hard time focusing on that client or patient so that I can really tune in. So whatever it is you need to do with your body to also help you with this piece is important. All right. So what do we got? Look at this, the benefits of small talk. I think of small talk, and it's when I'm chatting with someone, you get those chat boxes with tech support, banking, or troubleshooting something, you get a little bit of the chat, the small talk. But also when I'm supporting people and they're giving me their information, I'm just now logging it in on the computer, and then there's downtime. And I've learned that during that downtime, I'll say, I have questions for them just to break the ice. I'll say things, for example, and I have some examples as I move forward. The thing is, I get excited and I start telling you things that I'm going to tell you in the next slide. So I got to slow down. The other thing is, when you're asking these questions, you want to be genuine and be purposeful with your questions. Sometimes it could just be something just to break the ice, because that's fine. Or sometimes you'll want to ask a question that's going to help you at the end of the day, because guess what? By listening, you'll know that, wow, they need a different referral. They need a different type of support. And that's where those come in. Think as you're doing this small talk, be aware again of that voice, the tone of voice, your body language. And that idea of making friends in the city, I think, simplifies it, because how I would connect with friends is a little more relaxed. and a little friendly tone. And that allows me just to be safe wherever I go. All right, moving on. So the power of word choice, this is one of my, to me, this is huge, right? Our vocabulary, what's coming out of our mouths. And I wanted to say that, I'll give you an example, even my thoughts now. I don't know how many years ago I started really being conscientious of my thoughts. Have you walked in a room when people are upset? You just walk in and there's tension in the room. How about this? I walk into an elevator and there's tension in the elevator. And so sometimes I've had some bad thoughts in the elevator and I'm like, no, I don't want to have any bad thoughts because they're going to feed off that energy. I'm like, God forbid it's like, so I even will start making sure I distract myself. So I'm not having any bad thoughts because God knows I don't want that out. I don't want bad juju. So let's get started. I have you can see I'm a huge fan. So we're going to play this video. If it decides.
Words are things and contains.
Can you hear?
You must be careful about the words you use, or the words you allow to be used in your house. In the Old Testament, we are told in Genesis that in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was God, and the Word was with God. That's in Genesis. Words contains. You must be careful. Careful about calling people out of their names, using racial pejoratives and sexual pejoratives.
Okay. No, it's a short video, so that's really what it was. So again, if words have power, words have energy, how are you? Oh, there it is. It paused.
Someday we'll be able to measure the power of words. I think they are things. I think they get in the walls, they get in your wallpaper, they get in your rugs, in your upholstery, and in your clothes, and finally into you.
Okay, so one of the things she mentioned was that she believed, and I do believe in the power of the words, that they're powerful. And that's why I'm really cautious of even my thoughts now. I'm really cautious of my thoughts because I think, again, as I'm building that optimism, that positive attitude, I don't have time or space for the negativity. It's going to bring me down ultimately. And the negative words she talks about, she feels like they are things. They have energy, they have power. They can fall in, they get into your house, they get into your walls, into the wallpaper. She said eventually they get into you. And that was it's a quick video. You can look it up. You'll be able to pull it once. I believe we share the slides. I'm not sure. But moving on, let's move it. This is not what I wanted. Okay, there we are, right here. So as we're moving for quick tips, one of the things that I do is I make sure that I use people's names, their last names for the most part. I would say Miss Hall, Miss Gonzalez, Mr. Pongos. If there's a name that I don't know, I can't pronounce, I don't spend too much time fretting about it. I'll just change it to Mr. Nino, Miss Gonzalez, Miss Jennifer, and allowing people to really say, no, it's okay, you can use my first name. But for the most part, I just always rely on the last name. Culturally, again, it's demonstrating, what am I doing? I'm setting the tone. I'm setting the tone. It's how we communicate. I'm also being a model, because guess what? If I've informed you that I'm being respectful, you're going to now think about how you're going to relate to me, don't you think? No matter where you are. And so it informs the level of your professionalism too, for your patients, the people you're interacting with. Again, how are you using your tone? And I like to use volume and drama. I dramatize everything. I'm very dramatic culturally. I just can't help it. But I've also learned to use drama as a tool to get them to focus. Now, you heard me earlier. I was like, listen to this, right? And you were all listening. But it does help. And especially in your world where you already know you're going to give the patient, the person, some instructions, and they tend to mess it up. They always they miss a couple steps in those instructions. So that's where you want to lean in and say, oh, listen to this part. You'll want to know about this. And it's just even that will simplify your process and how they're engaging with you. Let's look at the last one. I think it's really important, right? And I'm sure you at times have already done this, is really being transparent with your communication style. So inform the person of what are we doing. So as they're waiting, and I'll say things like, I'll give you an example, to be efficient, I will ask you some questions and that'll allow me to begin your process. Because sometimes they'll come in and they start talking and you're like, it's only going to slow you down because you know what you need to do. And so how do you handle that? And I'll even give you one that I use all the time. And I get parents calling, community members, I get people calling with complaints. I've been reported everywhere. But at the end of the day, I trust my work. And here's an example. May I interrupt you? I'm more than happy to hear what's going on. However, I want to be mindful and save you energy, because as the person that really needs to hear what's happening with you is in the next room. That's who you're going to meet. That's who you're going to see. Now, I'm more than happy if you want to share with me, that's fine. But I know that as you're beginning this process, you're going to have to tell over and over. So, I'm trying to be mindful of your time and your energy. And I am being genuine. I'm more than happy to listen, but it's not going to help them. And I feel bad because sometimes it's a long-winded information and it's painful. It's a painful conversation. Now, and sometimes they'll tell me, they're like, no, I don't mind, I'll tell you. And I listen, and I'm okay with that. But I just wanted to share some options on how to bow out of that. And also, I tend to interrupt because I have a lot, like I'm sure you do too, emails, projects, calls. And so how do you navigate everything with also demonstrating that they're important, that their time is important? So that's going to be the key. This is fun here. I think that, I add everything. I think everything's fun, but here it is. Here's some ideas. Again, it's like replacing your language. What are you doing? So look at this. Thank you for your patience. I'm highlighting patience because we don't realize it. We'll say, thank you for waiting. All they hear is that, yep, I've been waiting and I've been waiting a long time. So it sets the tone. Allow me to review so that I may provide you with accurate information. Because sometimes instead of saying, I don't know, that's just not going to be helpful to anyone. It's only going to agitate. And you may know a little bit, but you're not 100% sure, but there isn't a need. It's better to just say, allow me to investigate. Sometimes investigate is too serious of a words, but I like to allow me to review and let me get back to you. And the key thing is to follow through, right? The follow through is really huge. And the last one is mostly if you're really wanting to pull out, gain additional information. I'm going to give you something that to me is a game changer when it comes to communicating. It's not on here, but it's a game changer because I figured you want to write it down. I'm talking game changer in life. So here's the trick. Only tell them what you want them to do. Only tell them what you want them to do. I'm going to tell you what that looks like. I'll give you an example. I bumped into this technique in 2007. It comes from applied behavioral analysis. It comes from PBS, positive behavior support. You don't need to know all that, but tell them what you want them to do. And I'll give you an example. I was dealing with children, and you know what they always say to the children: stop running, don't run. All they hear is run. And here was I with my new tool, my new technique. And I said, okay, show me walking. I only want to see walking. I mean, those children stopped and they looked at me and they started walking. And so this is a game changer in your life. Only what you want is coming out of your mouth. When you're making the request to your loved one, when you're requesting it to your children, to your family, to the patient, to the client, to the customer, only tell them what you want. And it's going to be a game changer. I would love to hear the evidence of that. Oh, look at that. First, schools first. Yeah, that's right. Okay, moving on. All right, so there you have it. So I'm looking at the time too. I can see I get so excited, and I'm supposed to keep it light and polite here myself. But communication with simplicity. Have fun with it. I'll give you some examples. Even when you're on the phone, there's research, right? I don't know if you've heard the research. People can hear if you're smiling or not on the phone. Did you know that? What? Yep, you knew. And so being pleasant on the phone, chunk instructions into smaller steps, have fun with it. It's like, how many people have used the old one of like, oh, I need your autograph, right? It sounds cheesy, but it lightens up the mood. I do it all the time. I have some fun paperwork for you to complete. Here are some lovely forms to fill out. Don't get too excited. I only have 2 pages for you to complete today. I'll give you an example. I tell people to join this. It's a web page that I created for learning purposes. And I tell them, have you joined your favorite page? And they're like, oh, and I always say your favorite. Why do you think I do it? For fun? But guess what? They're going to remember. You know what they told me? They said, oh, Araceli, you're funny. I remember your presentations. She said, but you have serious information, but I remember them. You stand out. Why? Because I use humor. And I really am, what I'm saying to you is use yourself. The little box of chocolates, we're all different. You may not really like looking at people in the eye, but trick them, because you can look at their nose or the bridge of their nose, and they can't tell you're not giving them eye contact. They think you're giving them eye contact. Who knew, right? The next slide for you is just to share a quick, this is quick. I got this when I was a teenager, luckily. And it made sense to me. At the time, I hadn't even read the book, but it was enough for me to set a foundation. So I do have this under resources, and I believe it's powerful. So like number 1, for example, is speak with integrity. Say only what you mean and avoid using the word to speak against yourself or gossip about others. Use the power of the word in the direction of truth and love. So that's just for you for the future. Also, this one, the benefits of gratitude. There's a lot of research on gratitude. We talked about Dr. Daniel Siegel. This comes from one of my favorite websites right now. It's a huge tool. It's a game changer as well. It's one I recommend to everyone. It's the Greater Good from Berkeley. But don't worry, it's in your references resources. They have podcasts, they have articles, and they're light and polite, but they're rich with research content. And it's in the resource references. You'll see it when we move forward. But look at this, the benefits of gratitude. Take that home and build on it. All right, moving on. We've got, now let me tell you about this. So this information comes from the work of Dr. Kelly McGonigal. She's the one that brings forth the science behind this section. She is a health psychologist, award-winning lecturer at Stanford University, a leading expert on mind-body relationships. Her work integrates the latest findings of psychology, neuroscience, medicine with thoughtful practices of mindfulness and compassion. And when it turns out with compassion, you know what compassion looks like because you've experienced it. Hold on to that. That's the trick when we move forward with this conversation. You know what that looks like. I don't know about you, but the whole point of giving and giving and giving is about giving, because at the end of the day, you benefit. I don't give because I benefit, I just give. But it is nice to know that, look at this, while you may feel compassion towards others, you are always the first recipient of your loving kindness and compassion. I'll give you an example. When I was first new to the profession of mental health education, when I first started my career, I was in my 20s, and my psychologist next to me, she was my colleague. She would always give compliments. And it just, I was uncomfortable. I was like, oh goodness, they were genuine. You can see the people light up. She would light up. Have you ever walked around and somebody compliments your new Chucks? I mean, all of a sudden you got a little bounce in your step, right? But the thing is, if you watch the person that gave you the compliment, they also have a little bounce in the step. It was this exchange with strangers. And so as small of that interaction, I wanted to use it with compassion is deep and thick and complex, but just even compliments, words are free. I always say nobody charges for that. There is no charge. Give it out, share it out. At the end of the day, you're going to benefit. So let me keep going. And also the research stated that some studies show that the doctor with a caring bedside manner can affect the patient's well-being and recovery. It's huge, right? So they did the research. I'm going to be quick on the research part. I won't spend too much time, but it turns out, just like we were saying earlier, you can tell when somebody on the phone is smiling. Well, you don't see them, but you can tell. It turns out we can feel we know what compassion looks like. Sorry, we can tell what it looks like. You don't even have to hear them. but you can tell. And this is the research findings. They had couples, one was sharing to partner A was sharing their stressful and painful experience with their partner B in a romantic relationship. They filmed partner B, the one that was supposed to be listening. And then later they tracked all his body language and movements. And then they showed it to another group and they just had him, no sound, no volume. And this is what compassion looks like. Open body language, turning your body towards. So if I'm presenting it, I know, look, listen to this. My camera's right here. This is my eye contact, but I know I see you over here. But if I spend my time over here as a presenter, we're missing each other, aren't we? So I'm very aware that my eye contact is with you right here. And I glance over to see if you're paying attention or if you're like, fooling around, but just know that I know where you are. And so here it is, look at this. And also our hands, look at our hands. Who knew? Our hands need to be empty and relaxed because, and it's funny, back in the day when I was new professional, I would keep my cup of coffee in my hand because it was really uncomfortable and it was serious information and that would help me feel better. But it turns out that when it comes to compassion, it's like hanging in there with just your body, your eye contact, paying attention with your eyes. And look at this, I thought this was interesting. The encouraging gestures. This is gestures. We're not talking here. The gestures of smiling. The gesture of like, I'm with you. I hear you. Keep going. When somebody's talking and you go, I care about you. That is powerful. There weren't any words. And I'm going to focus in on the bottom one. Look at this. This one's, I think, in my opinion, one of the hardest ones. Listen to understand. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. Listen to understand. And this is the beauty. Nothing has to come out of your mouth. Actually, the recommendation is close it, shut it down, shut the pie hole. Because it turns out that when we're talking too much, we end up talking about ourselves. We want to relate to them. Oh, that happened to my uncle. Oh, that happened to me last weekend. And before you know it, the person that's listening is saying, they're just talking about themselves. They're not hearing me. So that was one of the best things. So I'm going to move on because otherwise I'll stay too long. So how do you offer the compassionate presence? And so it turns out, I've already mentioned it, listen in silence. Listen with your whole body. Again, moving, open. And if it's needed, again, it's like I'm leaning in because I want to listen. Sometimes I will do this and I'll just say, I really want to hear you and I need to like stay focused, whatever it is for my body that'll help me. And the last bullet I think is the best is really turn off the channel that least likely conveys compassion. And that channel is talking, in a sense, like close it and be confident that the research showed it was beautiful. Be confident that just because you've experienced compassion in your life, you know what it looks like. Your body will know how to respond. So trusting yourself. Also, look at this. And I know with the pandemic, it's changed. And culturally, I know that we're all different, how we deal with this. But touch ranks higher than facial expressions and certainly higher than words. I've shared with you that I've met with many groups of people, and I used to be the first one to shake hands. Mr. Jones, Miss Sanchez, Miss Graciano, I would shake hands and nice to meet you. The reason why I do it is powerful. I'm informing you that I'm okay with you. I'm okay with you as a person. I'm okay. I'm welcoming you into my space. I had to do it sometimes where there wasn't a cubicle, there wasn't a desk. We were just in an open room, and I would use humor. I was like, "Come, welcome into my office," and I would make sure that their chair was close enough to me, so that it became that little space. That energy was there and contained. And I'm going to move on. And sometimes a gentle touch, right? A gentle touch on the shoulder, on the arm, can be powerful. But again, that's your comfort level. I'm not pushing you to do that. You have to figure that out on your own. Oh, look at this with our time. So with that being said, this brings me to the reflection piece, which is what we covered today. Was at the end of the day, I hope that you picked up that in order for us to kind of meet the goals of this presentation, it starts with you. I want you to be healthy, happy, and strong. I want your well-being at the forefront. At the end of the day, if you're not well, it's hard. It's hard to connect with others. It's hard to engage them. I think of our work. We live at work. I don't know about you, but I live at work. I spend so many times, I spend hours and hours and hours at work. And for me, it has to be a happy place. And what can I do to make it a happy place? Because at the end of the day, I can only control what I'm doing and what's in my space. So I'm going to be that champion of, it's a happy place. You can come to my cubicle anytime. And I live in a cubicle in my real world. And that's one of them. And just be aware that at the end of this presentation, there's a lot of gems in the resources and the research. Feel free to dive in. There's a lot of wealth for you. I have a video that I want to play. And please, I'm going to invite you right now, tune into the video. I'm hoping the sound gets better. Let me see if I could improve it. I'm scared to move it, but we'll do it. Otherwise, you can look it up, but it's a power. I've been showing this video for 6 years to all my students and children and families that I can. Here goes.
You're teaching. Can't say you do not as I do, but do as I say. You have to say, I'm doing my best to live what I teach. I have a painting by Phoebe of a group, she calls it Suzuki's funeral. And they're all the women, there are about 9 women, and they all look like women in my grandmother's
Sorry, I see I have issues with tech. All right. Let's play it again.
Araceli, are you still with us?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you see it?
No.
Can
Okay.
you hold on? Let me see. Sorry about that.
That's
You start
okay.
having tech problems. It's never good. Are you able to see it or hear?
Not yet.
Oh, nothing, huh? Okay. Let's see. I'm a little nervous. Yeah.
But you're kind of coming in and out as well, your speech.
Okay, my speech. Okay. So let's
Yeah.
see if I can bring this over. Where were we? Towards the well, at the end of the day, the good news is that there's a good news. What do you see now?
The graduate.
Okay, great. Okay.
Can't hear it. Can you hear it?
No, I can't hear it. No.
Okay, I'll just stop.
Yeah,
So,
I think, yeah.
okay, no worries. All right, so the good news is we were towards the end. So I'm going to go ahead and move it over. And so the resources are here for you. And that were mentioned earlier in some additional ones. And here's some references. So if I'm correct, we are done with our presentation. And this is a good time to take in questions I'll see if I can get my camera back. All right, there's my, you see me now?
Yes.
Sorry about that. You never want tech problems, but there you are. Patience is a virtue. Okay, I'm up for questions. If you have time, I'm not sure how we're doing.
Let's see, are there any questions?
All right, so here's a question.
That's-
I have a question for you. You can put it in the chat. What is one thing, one or two or three, whatever you like, but I can take one. What is one thing that you'll be able to implement or walk away with today? Even if it was something you already knew, a refresher, a reminder, a commitment, a challenge. I tried challenging you today. I challenged you to become an optimist. You know, it's half full. Is the glass half full or half empty? Right? For me, it's going to be half full. And the other thing is I challenge you to become a lifelong learner, as I'm open to learning constantly. Textbook, that's nice. That's great. Audiobooks, podcasts, but also from people. I learn from everyone that walks in my life. And I'm open to learning and to be humble. That's really been important. So what are you going to walk away with today?
I'll say what I think I'm going to walk away from. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Mhm.
I need to watch my energy a little bit because I can be very infectious and people respond and they react from me.
Yes.
So when my energy is negative, I think it impacts the people around me because I have such a strong personality. For the people who know me, that's why Lena and Lynn are laughing, and Mandy. So I think I'm just going to be more aware of my energy. Like you said, the whole elevator thing, you walked into the elevator and you're like telling yourself, oh, I'm not even gonna think bad because I don't want my energy to be bad, right? So I really felt that. I'm gonna really try to be very clear and a little bit more obvious, think a little bit more about my energy and what I put off.
That's a compliment to you, Miss Cooper, because at the end of the day, it just shows how powerful you are with your influence. Now, the question is, are you going to take it in a positive way, right? Take your energy and your power in a positive direction, or are you going to take it in a different direction? And that's the challenge. It's like that's how much power we all have. And where are you a force for good?
I need to work on that when they're not being so good around me.
And I can say, Miss Rewa, that we love your energy. We absolutely love you and your energy. So I wouldn't change a thing. But Ms. May, Arizona, I must say that this presentation was absolutely right on time.
Yeah,
Exactly what I needed, some great information. I'm gonna have to go back to some of your resources. So I wrote down the 3 Gs and 2 Ps, but I wasn't writing fast enough because before you moved your slides, so I had gratitude and I think it was generosity.
And giving back. Giving back.
And giving back. Okay. So I'm gonna have to go back and get all those, but I love, that was one tidbit I received from you. I love the idea when you talked about slowing down, taking a breath and refreshing, because sometimes if you have a busy day, you don't have time to do that. You're moving from one thing to another. And before you know it, the day is over. And then that's when at the very end of the day, when you're totally wiped out and sapped, that you take time to breathe. But I
Did
think
you hear that, Lynn?
but I think we need to do that throughout the day. You had mentioned doing it in between each one of your patients. And maybe we need to do that in between each one of our customers or in between each one of our meetings. You know, just take that, and it doesn't take a long time, I don't think, you know, just to take that deep breath and refresh. And I think that is another thing I took away. And then the last thing that I learned, and I wish I would have known this when my kids were young, was only tell them what you want them to do. I love that.
Relationships too. The relationships.
Yes, I love it.
I'm here for you.
Yeah, this was excellent. Thank you so much. This was very, very powerful, very informative, and just a wealth of information for me. So thank you so much.
And I want to say also thank you so Tani for bringing me over. So that's awesome. Thank you all.
Absolutely. We're going to have you back.
I know we're almost out of time. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you again. It's an honor, and it is an honor and a privilege to be here with you. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. We truly appreciate you taking the time to spend with us today. And I hope that each one of us has taken, just a tidbit of information that you shared with us that they can incorporate into their daily lives. But thank you so much for your time today. And thank you for all the participants. We appreciate you being here and spending this afternoon with us. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Um,